Hi there, and welcome to our podcast, Cloudy with a Chance of Insights. And today it's going to be a bit different because it is just Richard and I. It is just Cyrus and I. I was thinking about Richard because he is off on holiday somewhere glorious, and I'm sure he'll tell us all about it when he gets back. But for this recording and perhaps the next recording, it may well be just Cyrus and I. So this week, again, aligned to things Microsoft, I'm going to talk about a Microsoft Draft announcement for M365. I'm going to talk about a research post that I found and an interesting LinkedIn thing that Clemens Vasters shared recently. Cyrus is going to talk about Entra, and he's going to talk about Purview, I think. So with that, Cyrus, do you want to kick us off?
Thank you, David. Yes, it's a weird setup today without Richard. We are very used to have Richard, at least him, not me or not you, but always Richard. Yeah. So today we take over and we will try if it's better without him. I'm joking, Richard. If it's he's enjoying his vacation, so I wanted to say that. So today I wanted to talk about something that sounds boring on paper, but it's actually one of the biggest shifts we're seeing in security right now. Identity and data security are finally being wired together in a way that feels practical. But before I start, I had I scroll unfortunately a lot LinkedIn on my spare time, and there's something that I see with all these updates, and I wanted to know your feeling, David. I used to do a lot of automation on Azure, on different portals of Microsoft, because of little things that didn't work, or go on different MVP blogs and say, this is how we can improve things that doesn't work. But when you don't connect to a specific portal or a specific app within the portal, after a few months, sometimes the automation you made feels useless because they already changed so much and so fast. Do you have this feeling too, David?
Yeah, I mean, the things have a habit of changing. I mean, even the Microsoft native stuff, right? So if I think about Power Automate, the amount of times I've gone back into a flow and all of a sudden it stopped working because something's changed somewhere and I've got to go back in and reconfigure something. And these things, you're right, get forgotten about because they just become a thing that happens in the background until it doesn't. And then generally not noticed straight away because these things aren't really super critical, right? When you're building your own personal flows or these personal automations, it's kind of something that you don't really rely on in many ways, but it's quite useful. And then all of a sudden you notice your usefulness has dropped.
That's the usefulness. Yes, that's the part where I got triggered, because we do something, we improve it, and then you tell someone that is maybe new in the technology, and it's like, what you're talking about? Like, this is working as it is, out of the box. Like, no, it doesn't work. I remember I had to do that for years. And then you check, yes, small update that no one ever noticed, or a group of people who are experts noticed that. So instead of digressing too much, that's why I'm doing these updates often on the technology, because there's so much to say. We think it's detailed, but sometimes it's changing life for people who are stuck in those technologies. Us, we have the chance to do so many different things. And you, David, are the prime example. And even me recently, when I was involved in the AWS project, it's not my expertise, but so it's funny to sometimes just refocus and see, oh wow, it changed so much in the last few months. Especially with the announcement. So on the Purview side, last time we didn't have time, but I will just quickly show what happened in the last 2 months in very short. In late December 2025, Microsoft introduced, last time I was talking about, the new data security posture agent in preview. The important bit is not the word agent, because we talked a lot about that. It's what it does. It uses large language models to help you discover sensitive data, and you will see it's important later for the other bit, and understand risk using context. It's not just keyword anymore. So instead of find credit card number, it's closer to show me where the business is behaving dangerously with data.
Nice.
And that's why DSPM is no longer just a dashboard. Last time, I was talking about these outcome cards. So this is risky and this is why, and here's what to fix next. Then on the 21st January, I think in my notes, yes, 21st January 2026, Purview also announced new diagnostic for DLP on information protection. So I was also about the diagnostic, for diagnostic logs and things. No. It's so if you've ever had a DLP policy trigger and thought, yes, but why exactly? This is for you. The diagnostic are meant to show things like which sensitive information types were detected, what label was applied, and which DLP policy were matched. It's for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Exchange only for now, which is great already. The preview started rolling out in January, as I said, and general availability is planned for very, very soon, like April to May 26. Now, quick but very real operational change in Purview e-discovery, because these are the sort of change that breaks process quickly, like you talked about, the one I like, Power Automate. So it's this kind of small change. So from 16 February, which is soon, content search cases in e-discovery will stop supporting review set and case level data source. Searching and exporting still works, but anything that looks like full review workflow belongs in a dedicated discovery case. On the same date, direct export package will expire after 14 days. So if your process is to export now, as you know, and download later, that later now has a deadline. And I remember working long time ago with for a specific company with a bailiff. So they call it a bailiff in France. And when they come, those bailiffs, they're really well aware of different technology, Palo Alto and Microsoft, which I was surprised. In France, they're very good with Purview, which was like a compliance portal before. And the things that marked me is what they do as a process is they always start with the e-discovery. They ingest everything as evidence, and they always say download now, and we reconvene later in 1 week, because they know it's like between 5 years to 2 or 3 days to prepare the whole download, and then you can do that. So sometimes it can take longer, but now for some reason it's only 14 days max. So small change for
How long is it?
Yeah, it sounds a lot, but actually for some case, for lawyers or bailiffs who are involved, it's actually really short. So good to know. So I got lost in my digression. So, okay, so now keep that in mind. On the identity side, so Microsoft Entra is publishing harder into the agent era. And on the 15th January 2026, I think I was referring to that change that will happen soon, but now it's official. Microsoft released Entra PowerShell v1.2.0. So it's a big one. And the big headlines, there is a proper support for, as you guessed, agent identity blueprints, basically more structured automation for creating and operating agent identities, including permissions and token flows. And that's a big subject. A lot of discussion into that in the recent news. I will not digress with Intune because there is a lot of change into the token protection. I will keep that for next time. And conditional access is also adapting. There's now specific guidance for conditional access for agent identities, including where CA applies and why it doesn't in these agent token flows. So that's for next time. But it's already, you can check the news. It's very, let's say, furnished. There's a lot of information. Now a security update that will get very visible to users, but I didn't saw too much hype on this one. Is Microsoft Authenticator is adding jailbreak rooted device detection. It's only for work and school accounts. The rollout already started in some tenants and is expected to complete in 3 months. I think of April 26. It will be phased in 3 parts. The first is just a warning: your device is rooted and you will be kicked out. Then it's blocking, and the third one is, of course, the most important one: wiping the work account from the device. And that's good because there's no admin switch, there's no opt-out. It's secure by default. And that I really like from Microsoft to have this secure by default. You will see that a lot, and you probably saw that a lot everywhere. It's a forced application. So of course, There will be complaints. There will be people calling the support and stuff. But don't forget that bring your own device was never meant to be secure. It's not secure. Even with all the marketing from different brands and Microsoft the first, bring your own device. You can improve them, but it will never, never, ever be secure. There's no total control, no security. So now let me connect those two quickly, Entra and Purview, with something that is genuinely interesting, and especially for you, David, because I think I've talked once about this one, but now it's even better. Is the network level controls that understand files and AI prompts. So in global secure access, which is something I play a lot with now, that's a feature called network content filtering for files. So it's effectively client and cloud. So you install the global secure access client on Windows or macOS, and even on phones, but it's going through, for phones, it's going through Defender app. So I will not digress to that one. And it enables traffic forwarding, and you can configure TLS inspection so the device can inspect what's going out.
Wow.
Then you can build file policies that care of things that like purview sensitive labels, sensitive content, and even the user's risk level, for example. It's currently preview and it supports file over HTTP 1.1, and it's not plain text, it's 4 files. And for the AI prompt detection, it's called prompt shield. And I think I've discussed about that a few months ago, but it's something in global secure access, which aims to block prompt injection and jailbreak style prompts before they hit your AI model, and at the network layer, of course, without changing app code. And this is an every year there's a prediction of what the security landscape will be, and we talk a lot about shadow AI and stuff. It sounded a bit like a word to be cool and to create new drama, but it's becoming more practical, tangible with this. So you can see how people do and test a lot of prompt injection, and that tool can see that at the network level. So it's a quick win on the basic.
I love the sound of it. I just the infrastructure bloke in me worries about, if you're intercepting every packet and every traffic that's going out, what is that going to do to the performance for the users? And if you're gonna,
that's true. Yeah.
And if you're then using things like Windows PC and in Azure, then what's going to do there? It's going to be super interesting. See.
That's why I like to talk to you, because when I was saying TLS inspection, I was looking at you directly because I was like, it surely is not going to work everywhere, I'll not be approved everywhere. And of course, it's a blunt thing to say, but the fact that you can do that directly from, don't forget that it's not like Palo Alto. They don't sell hardware, Microsoft. It's literally this client to cloud. So it's interesting that you can do that, and potentially, and in some situation where you need control freak, really scenarios, that natively you can inspect everything. But of course, yes, performance. I haven't thought of that, but but also maybe I don't know if it's maybe GDPR if the phone is not or the device is not is a bring your device. Of course, you can't do that. Even corporate, in some case, you need to be sure that you're covered to do the inspection.
For sure.
Yeah, that's it for the news. It's short, but you can see literally small change in 2 months that you probably not heard so much, and now it's just like the identity piece and the purview working together. I love that. It's just like tangible efficiency.
Yeah, it is good when things come together, isn't it? For sure. Good. All right. Thank you, Cyrus. That was really good. So, as I said, there are 3 things that landed in my feed of the last. Well, they're a bit old now, aren't they? We're a bit late recording this because we were hoping to do it a bit sooner, but I'll share them anyway. So the first one was a Microsoft Graph announcement for M365, and that is specifically around, what's it called? The public preview of tenant configuration management APIs. So in Microsoft Graph. And what that really does is that it formalizes something that, I guess, something that most large organizations have struggled for in the past years and have had to go for different applications and different things to try and manage it, which is tenant drift, right? How do you monitor your tenant for changes, and then how do you measure against those changes? And we've done that with DSE and Azure for years, right? But that capability in M365 hasn't been there, and we know that over time Microsoft 365 tenants will change, right? So you have changes that are absolutely intentional, some that are, say, accidentally done, and some just come from well-meaning admins, I suppose you could say. And seeing as we're talking about it, some could come from automation as well, right, Cyrus? And indeed, as we were saying, some come from the defaults changing from underneath you. So the point you were saying earlier about the new setting. So and historically, I suppose the way folk have dealt with this in the past has been somewhat clumsy. I suppose you could say it's either screenshots, video recordings, it's manual checks. People love a spreadsheet with all these settings on, right? Or perhaps even third-party tools that have been bolted on to try and manage this. So what these APIs introduce is the idea that your tenant has this sort of, as I said, a declared desired state. Find what good looks like. You do it using, I'm fairly sure you do it using JSON, and you can then take sort of point-in-time snapshots of the live tenant and then compare the two. It's super, because then when they do diverge, it is super clear and easy to see. Not across everything yet, I don't think. So I'm fairly sure it's over Entra, ID, Change, Intune, Purview, and Teams at the moment. Defense support, I think, is limited. But I think, that the direction of travel is obviously something super, super useful. And, if, the Microsoft applying configuration as code thinking properly to M365. So now it's like a first party tenant to what we've been doing in Azure for a while now, which is quite nice. So really, really good to see that land. The second thing I was going to talk about, again, was from Microsoft Research. And I think I'm going to do a bit of I think I'm going to butcher this description, because I've tried a few times now and I've not quite managed to make it land. So I'll be super interested to hear people's feedback on this one. So, and it does need a bit of unpacking. So it's a new small language model. We all love small language models. That's the way everything's going. And in terms of being able to have specific models for specific things, and it's called OptiMind, and it is a small language model for optimization. And it's like, right, how do you describe optimization? It's one of those terms that sounds more complicated than it needs to be, I thought, but it turns out it is quite complicated. So in the context of this, I think optimization is about making the best possible decision when you can't have everything you want, right? So there are limits. If you think about, organizations, time's a limit, money's a limit, people's a limit, capacity's a limit. And you're trying to get the best outcome without breaking any of those limits. And, you could look at a very ordinary example, I suppose, something like scheduling. So you need staff a particular service, you need enough people at the right times, people can only work certain hours, got rotas, some roles need specific skills. You want to try and control cost while you're doing all that, and equally you don't want the same person to be working all the time and burn them out. So there are a bunch of dimensions there, and us as humans can reason about this when it's relatively small. If you've got a smallish team, say a team of 5, you can manage that, right? But as soon as it starts scaling, it becomes more guesswork, I think reality is. So And we know that computers are really, really good at solving sort of this type of problem, but they don't understand the problem in the way the humans do. So they don't understand phrases like, "I'll keep it fair," right? Or make it more efficient, or they need the problem written down very precisely so that then you can go through the process of the computer understanding it. And that's where the small language model comes in. Instead of having to spell out what choices are allowed, what rules must never be broken, what does best actually mean, that translation step is the hard part. And then it usually requires lots of maths, equations, specialist knowledge that I certainly don't have. And it's here where many optimization efforts will then stall. And OptiMind is designed to help with that exact step. You describe the situation in normal language in terms of what you're trying to achieve, what constraints you're working under, and the model then magically turns that into a formal mathematical description that a optimization engine can then work with. So it's not really giving you an answer, and it's not replacing human judgment. It's doing some of that upfront translation work that makes optimization actually usable at scale. And that's interesting for a whole bunch of reasons, right? But it's nice that they've gone with a small language model for that. So, you can run that locally, right? So it doesn't have to live in the cloud. You can run it on premises, which again, super useful for many people, as we've spoken about many times. And I like the direction because, again, it's not about the AI doing everything for you. It's more about trying to remove the friction, I guess, at exactly the point where humans and computers sort of struggle to meet. So I thought that was interesting. And then my third one is JSON, and more specifically around JSON structures. There is a chap called Clemens Vasters. He's Microsoft. He will pop up a lot on your LinkedIn feed on these topics. Very, very clever chap. I was lucky enough to present with him many, many, many years ago. Not long after I started Microsoft, he was very kind to me because I was an awful presenter. So he and another chap were very, very kind. And anyway, so he's super active in this space, and he's proposed a new schema language for JSON. And,
Wow.
JSON schema has been around for a really long time. And
Yeah.
it really does its job. Though that job is primarily around sort of validation, right? So it's not particularly good at expressing things like intent. I guess it'd be awkward when you want strong typing, things like code generation or database alignment. It doesn't work well for that. And I think, JSON structure, I'm by no means an expert, you probably tell me actually, Cyrus, but you sort of define the structure and the types first explicitly, then your validation sort of becomes a side effect rather than the main goal of what JSON does, right? So the proposal supports, I guess, richer types and maps more naturally into code and data models, which is really important because we know structured data underpins pretty much everything we build, right? Nowadays, there's an API, whether it's an event stream, operation platforms, or indeed AI pipelines. And, we know when that underlying structure is vague, things become, I keep saying this word brittle. I'm going to have to think of a new word, sorry, because I'm sure I use that word a lot, and I'm going to change it. Anyway, but when the structure is explicit, systems have become easier to reason about and evolve. He's got an ambition to take this towards IETF standardization. So this is, I guess, a bit more than a sort of niche side project, if I wanted to say. So yeah, go have a look. It's all on GitHub. He's very open about what he does. If Cyrus and I manage to work it out, we might even be able to put it in the show notes. Who knows? You're in for an exciting journey.
I'll put it in the notes, definitely. No, it's a massive change he's trying to do, and I'll probably add him on LinkedIn just to see all this research he does on JSON. And the previous news, is it Microsoft research?
Yeah.
Those chaps, they have a brain that's it's always very complex and interesting.
Yeah.
That was very interesting, this one.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, if you bring them all together, they were sort of loosely connected, but you can think, it's trying to move away from implicit knowledge, like the person that knows how the tenant's configured, or the person X who only knows how to optimize a particular thing right in a business, or somebody who only knows, a specific bit of JSON, right, to make it work in a given scenario. So I think there's, this move away from implicit knowledge, trouble understanding, more towards declared intent, structure, and verification. So I think that is super interesting. So those are the things I had to speak about. Go on.
Sorry, the first one you shared, the graph API, and the first episode we've done, I was talking about our second episode of Cloud Trust and Insight. This is the same level, the one you talk about. So there's so many things you can see as a tenant drift. Use the word tenant drift. This is very interesting because it's, and you created a tool, I remember, about doing a quick audit. So that's the same vibe. Soon we will be able to, because I was personally always stressed when I was asked to do an audit, because I never felt smart enough or experienced enough to spot the detail. So we always rely on different tools. But now the tools are overtaken by those new ones, and now we have the ability to do everything now. If you plug this API updates with LLM, or even small language, as you described, it will be easy with a Copilot laptop to do quickly, like with the NPU you have on your laptop, quickly to say, what's happening here? And say, oh yeah, look, this is the... So that's I have so many things to try now. It's always like that with the news with David. Mine is really generic news about what happened. And David is like, wow. So I have to remember to put the notes, the links for this episode. Absolutely.
Yeah. Very good. So that is for us. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe, click buttons on the platform of your choice, as Richard says. So whether this makes it to all the platforms, who knows? We're on an adventure, so we'll see. So thank you very much. I'll leave you with a big hug. I've got a cup that says big hug, and see you next time.